I'm going to talk to you this afternoon very briefly. I hope I'm going to be able to say everything that I would like to say about analytics in action, particularly on combining data analytics and quality peer review. This is with regards to the Engage program, which is the extended augmented degree program in engineering at the University of Pretoria. And the combination of the two is particularly done because the money for the quality review was provided to us by the Kreske Foundation. So this is almost like a feedback session to show how we worked with a combination of the two. Some background information, which I'm sure I don't have to highlight too much as we are all very aware of it, is simply the fact that we continue to face a shortage of high-level engineering skills and an ongoing need to transform the profession to ensure greater representativity. Additionally, there's a lot of literature in both South Africa and internationally citing the common failure of higher education to deliver the equipped problem-solving engineering graduates urgently needed to deal with 21st century complexities. That is according to Wolf in 2017. And then added to that, we, as we all know, have the challenges in student retention, success, and finally graduation, and particularly significant in engineering. We all know that. Attrition in STEM fields, based on the 2006 cohort, indicate, as we know, that the attrition rates appear well above the average of 40% in STEM for the 2006 cohort particularly, and nationally only 17% of STEM students complete their degree, according to Scott, Yeld, and Henry. In engineering, particularly engineering students, only 32% manage to graduate in the minimum time of 4 years. Just under 2/3 only graduate within 6 years, and just under a third of African students, for various reasons and facts, graduate in 5 years. So we definitely have a challenge in terms of STEM students and engineering in particular. In an XR throughput study completed by Fisher in 2011, he also indicated that the pipeline of qualified candidates from the school system into science, engineering, and technology, STEM fields in particular, in higher education is constrained by the poor quality of schooling, and many entering students, although in the top decile of their cohort, are academically underprepared and financially disadvantaged. So the challenge is definitely significant, even though we might work with strong students in the top deciles of their schools. So in response to these national challenges, the engineering school at the University of Pretoria developed in 2010 the engineering augmented degree program. We are I'm very happy to see Professor Grayson here, who developed the model for the university. And the engineering augmented degree program then as an extended degree, but also as an alternative entry route for talented but academically underprepared and disadvantaged students who then do not fully comply with the minimum entry requirements for the 4-year program, but still have the potential to succeed in an engineering degree. The aim of the Engage program then is to support and enable these students to achieve sound foundations for success in higher education. So when one looks at the program, and I'm running through this very quickly, the curriculum is structured in such a way that the program consists of the same mainstream modules that all BEng students take, plus then developmental modules in year 1 and year 2 of the program. Mainstream modules are taken together with 4-year degree students. They run in parallel. So we have our additional modules in parallel to the mainstream modules, and 2 types of developmental modules are presented: the augmenting or additional modules to address the necessary, often lacking background knowledge, to develop conceptual understanding and problem-solving skills, and then also 2 practice and project-based modules called professional orientation. The structure of the curriculum is also such that it provides scaffolding for student learning and self-regulation. So based on data and analytics, which was done right from the onset of the program, some trends were identified. Generally, I would, for instance, look at the registration data. And interesting in terms of the registration data, and this is now for engaged cohorts 2010 to 2018, one can see, for instance, that there was lower numbers enrolled in 2016 and especially this year in 2018 at only 141. Traditionally, around 300 students were registered per year. In 2013, the numbers were capped at 270, and particularly this year with the lower numbers, the explanation for that was that because engaged students are part of each engineering department, and the UP has reached its maximum, its top registration in terms of engineering students at about 2,000 first-year engineering students. Our students form part of each engineering discipline, but it was interesting for us to see that there's a lowering in the student numbers. Retention then was also always an issue right from the start to see how many students we could retain from year 1 to year 2. And in this regard, we always look at re-registration from year 1 to year 2, where generally one can see that it's higher than 70%. So we were quite happy with the re-registration numbers. If you compare that with proceed rates, which indicates that a student is either in good standing, 100% pass in all modules, or at least 70% of the credits and being allowed to re-register, there was a downward trend noticed in 2015, 16 and 17, which needs to be explored further, but which could, for instance, be linked to a number of aspects which we are looking into. For instance, the challenging situation on the campus, where students, our type of students which really need face-to-face contact, didn't have as much face-to-face contact on campus. We were also wondering whether it could have something to do with the grade 12 final examination, because as you know, the first examination based on the new CAPS curriculum was written in 2014. So there seems to be some kind of issue which could be looked at, and also literacy levels. Our experience with our students in terms of literacy levels decreasing made one wonder whether that also has. But this is the kind of data that we've been keeping. Also focusing carefully on the distribution between the different race groups, and also in engineering particularly looking at female and male students. The issue which prompted the quality review was the graduation rates of the first 4 cohorts. That would be cohorts 2010 to 2013, where we could then start seeing how many students could graduate in 5 years, which is regulation time for us, 5 years plus 1, which would then be equal to 4 years plus 1 for the 4-year students, and so on. And it was interesting for us then in terms of graduation cohorts to try and determine why, in comparison to the 4-year, the mainstream graduation rates, we managed to produce about half of what the 4-year degree could do. So what we then did, we started looking, and apart from the quality peer review, which we then had in November 2017, we also decided to take into consideration that the CHE discussion document in 2013 indicated that only about 1 in 4 students in general graduate in regulation time. Then only 17% of South Africa's STEM students complete their degrees, according to Yeld et al. In 2007, and of those, only 32% of engineering students managed to do so in the minimum time of 4 years. So and under 2/3 only graduate within 6 years. Within that context, we then, based on certain requests, decided to have a quality peer review to see where were we going wrong. If we were going wrong, what could we do differently? Because we want continuously to improve on the quality of our program to the advantage of our students. We then organized the quality peer review using 2 independent peer reviewers, one from UCT or one from Cape Town, CPUT, and one from the University of Joburg. Was that 10 minutes? 5 minutes? I had the quality review in November 2017. These people were also involved with the New Generation Extended Curriculum Follow-Up project. And in that particular project, which included 4 institutions, they particularly wanted to compare mainstream and extended programs precisely for the purpose of determining their efficacy. And what we then found, in general, they indicated that the UP Engage data have been combined with that of the New Generation project to highlight 2 key points. The first one is progression, retention, and graduation across all institutions are better for mainstream than extended. One can almost say that is to be expected. It's like comparing apples and pears. Secondly, the more successful extended programs have a number of important features in common, which I would like to highlight quickly. When they compared Engage with some of the other universities, in terms of extended degrees at 3 other universities, and particularly UP and UCT, they also found that it's clear that our success patterns are comparable, in that 15% of UP and 16% of UCT respectively students graduate in minimum time. Similarly, 22% of UP and 21% require N+2 at UP or N+3 at UCT. So in general, what they found, the key finding of that project, which was in line with what they found with us, was that the majority of the students require more time. And I think we all know that based on reports by the CHE before that. The quality peer review that was then held, and a little bit of background there, the reviewers adopted a holistic, research-informed pipeline approach with stages in the pipeline conceptually framed by a number of tools drawn from the sociology of education, and particularly the work of Basil Bernstein, and using both quantitative and qualitative methods, drawing on the existing statistics for the 2010 to 2012 entering cohorts, and an examination of the subject documentation with regards to teaching, learning, and assessment practices. The reviewer notes were also collated against the pipeline and qualitatively triangulated against staff and student interviews. So it was a very extensive week-long review. And in the review itself, they used the pipeline approach, focusing on admission, curriculum, graduation, and practices, and particularly also the 4 principles for feedback used is important for me to highlight, which indicates that these 4 principles established in the South African Extended Degree Program research focuses on 4 areas: foundation, provision, and support; epistemic transitions; enhancement, which focuses more on breadth; and enrichment, which focuses more on literacies. What they particularly said for Engage was that our admissions process focuses on foundation and enrichment. The focus of discipline-based staff, such as the physics, the chemistry, the maths, the electricity, electronics, and so on, is predominantly on foundation, but the use of different strategies which are incorporated in our modules also enable enhancement by way of practical references to real-world examples or the incorporation of broader problem-based elements. And even professional orientation, the module where I'm involved, which is a practices and project-based orientation module, support enrichment by way of academic literacies and enhancement through the use of projects. So, commendations, and I'll just quickly link up with this, where they indicated that the program goes above and beyond foundation provision in the team selection of materials, approaches to teaching, learning and assessment, all as best as possible aligned with the mainstream curriculum. Some recommendations: selection processes may benefit from longitudinal cohort study differentiating between the different exams or grade 12 exams. That is already in process, has been done and is being continued. A collaborative community of practice ethics between engaged staff themselves. We've had one workshop in October, follow-up workshops this year, as well as with mainstream counterparts to enable better program alignment. That's also in process with various modules, specifically mathematics, focusing particularly on epistemic transitions, and then also the tutors in all our modules working together. So finally, they said, the entire engaged team consists of dedicated academics keen to contribute to the development of our youth, almost done, Each individual staff member demonstrated commendable practices. I want to emphasize this. So where is the problem? Why do we not get more students to graduate? And what the conclusion was, finally, from their side, is that it might have more to do with the epistemic transitions, which is also something that I know Professor Grayson referred to right from the start. In terms of epistemic transitions, the following, I think, needs to be highlighted. That indicate that in terms of engineering degrees in particular, epistemic transitions are quite more complicated and involved than perhaps in some other degrees, because these transitions occur from natural sciences to engineering sciences, then to design sciences, and then only to application and practice. So these transitions represent not only increasing complexity, but essentially also point to different ways of thinking. And what they found then told us, findings of the project indicate that successful extended programs explicitly employ all 4 principles that I referred to in their support across the entire program, and not merely in the so-called foundation phase. So that's definitely something that needs to be considered. For instance, how does chemistry build into modules higher up in the curriculum, or physics? Students need to understand why they're doing physics and how it links up with other engineering modules. That is, I think, what we will take up from one of the important things to be taken up, and the report obviously was given to all of the important people to take note of. Another final thing that we will also look at is to do some more research with alumni to determine their entry into professional engineering practice. We haven't done that yet. And then also the perception of the extended versus mainstream. We've done that, but we can also extend on that. Sorry, it's a mouthful. Thank you for listening to me.